Nikon D3400, performance, image quality, video, and verdict. In good light, the camera was capable of locking onto a subject very quickly, and generally pretty accurately, too. In lower light, it was best to use the central f-point and focus and recompose, since this was a more sensitive cross-type f-point and in most scenarios was more accurate than those on the outer peripheries of the scene. Using live view was great when the subject was still and you had a time to wait for the focus to snap into place. However, this wasn't recommended for every shot. It was probably best reserved for still life shots, macros and anything for which you might be using a tripod. You could switch on 3D tracking if you wanted to follow a moving subject. It coped reasonably well with slow-moving subjects, but the D3400 wasn't really designed for shooting fast-paced action, such as quick wildlife or fast-paced sports. With 3D tracking turned on, you'd see the f-points flash red as your subject moved across the scene if the camera was able to keep up with it. If you shot in RAW format, and activated the continuous 5 FPS shooting mode, you'd only get to about 3 to 4 shots before the buffer stopped you from shooting at the maximum frame rate. By contrast, if you switched to the fine JPEG-only shooting mode, you'd be rewarded with around 50-60 shots before the buffer slowed you down. General operational speeds were good. Startup time was quick, especially if you'd already extended the kit lens. If you took a lot of shots in quick succession, you'd often need to wait a couple of seconds before you could look at them in playback. However, generally moving to playback, through menus and so on, was a pleasantly speedy experience. Despite the D3400 being an entry-level camera, it produced some excellent images, especially once you got to grips with how it worked. Colors were vibrant, without going too far into being unrealistic, with a pleasing amount of warmth under a variety of different shooting conditions. Detail was great, too, perhaps in no small part down to the fact that the camera's sensor didn't have an anti-aliasing filter getting in the way of detail resolution. Automatic white balance coped well under different conditions, although images were often a little more warm when you switched to the cloudy setting for overcast skies. Under artificial lighting, the camera coped well, producing accurate colors, which weren't too blighted by a yellowish or orange tinge that many cameras are often afflicted by. Under general-purpose metering, images were exposed well. You sometimes needed to dial in exposure compensation in high-contrast settings to ensure details weren't lost in the shadows, but this was no more so than you'd expect from a camera sensor of this type. Low light, high ISO performance was pleasing. All of the ISOs were usable, even the highest setting of ISO 25600. For best quality, it was best to stick to speeds of below ISO 3200. At between ISO 1600 to 3200 images were great, with very little noise and image smoothing, which was only really apparent if you scrutinize at 100%. Images from the D3400 really shone when accompanied by better quality lenses. While the kit optic was a good starter option, and suited a variety of subjects, using something like a 50mm f/1.4 to isolate the subject from the background showed the camera's true capabilities.